This is not porn, and it's definitely not a Hollywood revenge thriller. Irreversible is something much stranger. It's an anatomical study of trauma and time. This is Doctor's Cut, and today we're dissecting the neuroscience behind the most hated film in Cannes history.
C'est scandaleux! Une femme se fait violer pendant 20 minutes! Je vais de cette manière-là!
To understand Irreversible, we need to understand its director. Gaspar Noé isn't interested in storytelling in the conventional sense. He's interested in altered states of consciousness. Across his films, from Enter the Void to Climax, he consistently manipulates color, sound, and camera movement to destabilize perception. Spinning frames, pulsating reds, sub-bass frequencies that sit just below conscious hearing. These are not aesthetic choices. They are neurological triggers. When the camera rotates continuously without a visual anchor, your vestibular system struggles to reconcile motion with physical stillness. Your inner ear tells you you're stable. Your eyes tell you you're not. That sensory conflict produces dizziness, anxiety, sometimes even nausea. Noé weaponizes that instability, but in Irreversible, he adds something more disturbing. He manipulates time. The film moves backward, from consequence to cause, which means your brain processes trauma before it understands context. Psychologically, that mirrors how traumatic memory works. Trauma is not stored as a neat narrative. It is fragmented, sensory, overwhelming. By the time the film reaches the infamous tunnel sequence, your nervous system is already exhausted. And then comes the color. The tunnel is saturated in red. Red in psychological research is strongly associated with threat detection, physiological arousal, and alarm signaling. It increases heart rate. It narrows attentional focus. It primes the amygdala. You are not just watching a scene. You are placed inside a biological state of alarm. And then Noé does something radical. He refuses to cut away. Most cinema protects the audience with editing. Cuts create distance. They allow emotional escape. Here, there is no escape. The prolonged duration forces the viewer into sustained discomfort, not for titillation, not for spectacle, but to generate disgust. And disgust is important. From a neuroscientific perspective, disgust activates insular cortex pathways linked to moral judgment and aversion learning. If something truly disgusts you, your brain encodes it as something to avoid in the future. That scene is not constructed to arouse. It is constructed to break the viewer's detachment, to strip away voyeurism, to make violence feel intolerable rather than consumable. Because when violence is edited to be fast, stylized, or sensationalized, the brain can misclassify it as entertainment. But when it is prolonged, unfiltered, and emotionally suffocating, the experience shifts from spectacle to moral confrontation. Irreversible doesn't want you to enjoy it. It wants you to endure it. And in doing so, it leaves a trace, not just in memory, but in your subconscious aversion system. And then something strange happens. As the film continues moving backward, the chaos slowly begins to disappear. The camera stabilizes. The lighting softens. The violence fades away. What replaces it is something almost peaceful. Green grass, sunlight, laughter. But psychologically, this reversal creates one of the most disturbing effects in the entire film, because now the audience already knows what is going to happen. The future for the characters is already burned into your memory, and that knowledge changes the emotional meaning of every peaceful moment you see. In neuroscience, this relates to a concept called anticipatory anxiety. When the brain knows a traumatic outcome is inevitable, the amygdala remains active even during otherwise neutral or pleasant scenes. In other words, the calm becomes unbearable. You are watching happiness that you know is already doomed. Gaspar Noé reinforces this idea visually. Notice the colors. Earlier in the film, the palette is dominated by aggressive reds and chaotic camera movement, sensory overload, alarm, danger. But as we move toward the beginning of the story, the colors shift toward greens and natural light. Green is often associated with safety, restoration, and parasympathetic regulation, the opposite of the stress response. It's the visual language of calm, but because of the reverse narrative, that calm becomes tragic. The audience experiences something similar to what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. Your sensory system is telling you this moment is peaceful, but your memory is telling you it's already destroyed. And that's the cruel elegance of Irreversible. The film begins with chaos and ends with innocence. But because of the reverse structure, innocence becomes the most painful thing to watch. Which brings us to the film's most famous line: time destroys everything. Not because time is violent, but because time moves in only one direction. Gaspar Noé simply forces us to imagine what it would feel like if we could see the consequences first and the happiness afterward. And once your brain experiences that inversion, it becomes impossible to watch the ending without feeling the weight of everything that comes after. That is why Irreversible lingers in the mind long after the film ends, not as entertainment but as a neurological and emotional scar. And that may be exactly what Gaspar Noé intended. Cinema can entertain you, but sometimes cinema can also expose the fragile architecture of the human mind, and few films do that as brutally as Irreversible. This was Dr. Scott.